Hello everyone, welcome to my week 11 NFL predictions. Last week I went 6-8, which I believe was my second ever losing record this season for predictions. There were a couple of upsets that I had that I got wrong. I got the Titans wrong, I got the Jags wrong, I got the Panthers wrong, I got the Commanders wrong, but barely. Seattle's not convincing anyone, and it's hurting. It hurts. But there are a couple of upsets. Browns made a comeback against the Ravens after being 31-17 down. The Texans beat the Bengals, and Texans are looking strong. And I think there is even without Nico Collins. And the Broncos beat the Bills. A lot of these were pretty close scores. Every game here, because 10-6, 33-31, 30-27, 12-16, 24-22. And then 19-23, 41-38, 13-16, 23-25, 26-29. I'd say the only games that weren't close were Saints-Vikings, kind of. I mean, it was a one-score game, but yeah, Saints-Vikings, Titans-Buccaneers, and 49ers-Jags. And if you want to count Saints-Vikings as being a close game because it was one score, then it's just these two. And unfortunately for me, it looks like the 49ers are back. But I'll talk more about them later. Because on Thursday night, we've got the Bengals at the Ravens. This is a game I'm probably going to be staying out to watch. Both these teams coming off a very close loss last week. And the Bengals losing to the Texans by 3, and Ravens losing to the Browns by 2. Both Texans and Browns are strong contenders for the playoffs, so I'm not surprised that they struggled. Ravens had a lead, though, and they blew it. And the Bengals, Joe Burrow played a great game, had a lot of yardage, but they just couldn't hold the Texans off. And I don't think the Bengals at this point can afford to be going 5-5. I think in this match, they'll be a lot more competitive than the Ravens. I wouldn't be surprised if the Ravens win and sweep the Bengals, but I'm going to pick Cincinnati. I'm going to put my faith in them this time, but I wouldn't be surprised if Baltimore win. I think it'll be a very fun game to watch. At least it should be. The next game is the Raiders at the Dolphins. The Raiders, they are 2-0 under new head coach Antonio Pierce. I think interim head coach. Yeah, Antonio Pierce. They beat the Giants a couple weeks ago, and last week they beat the Jets. So they played both New York teams with a new head coach, and they've won both of those. Although one was against the Giants, and when they played the Jets, it was only by 4 points. So there is some talent on the Raiders team, but they're far from perfect. I don't think they're actually that good of a team. They are second in their division right now, but I don't suspect that will last long. Meanwhile, the Dolphins are coming off a bye week. They're at home, so it's going to be in the heat of Miami. Or it might not be because it's about November. But they should be getting A-Train back from injury this week. I thought they were going to have him back against the Chiefs, but I guess not. Maybe the rest is... The bye week has given them some extra rest. A-Train should be returning. I think the run game from the Dolphins is going to be extra strong against the Raiders. I'm going to pick the Dolphins. And this should break their streak of beating teams. I don't know. Because the Raiders are point... Like, if I take that away, they are 0.5. They are 500 at the moment. Because they're 5-5. So does this count as Dolphins not being able to beat winning teams? Or only beating teams with losing records? I don't know. But either way, I think the Dolphins will win. I think they'll get stronger throughout the season. And this should be a win for them. The next game is an AFC North division match. The other one So not Bengals, Ravens. It's Steelers at the Browns. This game, I think, is going to be very defense-based. I might have said this in week 2, I think it was, when they played each other first. And I think then I picked the Browns to win and Steelers won. And I'm going to go for the weird sweep here. I'm going to say that the Steelers are going to win. I don't know if Deshaun Watson is injured, because I think he picked up some sort of ankle injury against the Ravens. I don't think their offense, if he's injured, I don't think their offense will be as good. I don't think he's a great quarterback, but their offense isn't exactly thriving anyways. Their defense is obviously really good, but recently they've been conceding a fair amount of points. The Steelers' defense is good. The Browns' defense is good. Steelers' offense can't be trusted, but I don't think the Browns' offense is quite there yet. I think Steelers just about edge this one out. The next game is another divisional matchup in the AFC South. The Titans at the Jaguars. Now, I like Will Levis for the Titans, but these past 2 weeks haven't exactly been good for them. Taking a couple rough losses to the Steelers and Buccaneers. Meanwhile, the Jags, they're coming off a pretty tough loss against the 49ers. Their O-line didn't hold up that well, and just doesn't look like their offense could get going against the 49ers defense. It's a divisional matchup, so this is going to be competitive from both sides. I'm going to pick the Jaguars just to be a little bit safe, but in all honesty, I don't have complete confidence in either of these teams. So I wouldn't be too surprised if the Titans won, especially considering it's a divisional matchup. But the Jags should win. Doesn't mean they will, but that's just how the NFL goes. The next game is the Cardinals at the Texans. The Cardinals getting their second win of the season with Kyler Murray's first game back against the Falcons. So Kyler Murray you could get them a few more wins and possibly even go above the Rams at some point in the season. Meanwhile, the Texans are coming off a big win against the Bengals. That's going to be very important for seeding, I think, later in the season if they end up having similar scores. Because right now, Texans are looking really good. CJ Stroud has to be Offensive Rookie of the Year. And I think that I think the Texans are still a bit better than the Cardinals. I think they could potentially contend for their division against Jacksonville. Because they've beaten a good team. They've beaten the Bengals. And I think they could do much more. So I do think that they'll get the win against the Cardinals. I'm not trying to take away any credit from the Cardinals or Kyler Murray or anything like that. I think the Cardinals are decent, but I don't think they're quite up to the standard that the Texans are at the moment. So I'm going to go with Houston. The next game is the Chargers at the Packers. Neither of these teams completely convincing me defense-wise, but the Chargers are very, very much capable of scoring points. They're kind of like a glass cannon, I'd say, because their defense is not that good, but their offense is really, really strong. The Packers, it just doesn't seem like it's piecing itself together. They don't seem like they have a plan, really. They're not blowing anyone away when they do win, except maybe for the Bears in week 1, but the Chargers can score a lot more points, and they kind of have a more stable team than the Packers. Justin Herbert is a much better quarterback than Jordan Love. I don't quite recall how good the Packers are against the run, but if that's the case, then if it's not good, then I think Eckler's going to have a field day against them. I'm going to go the Chargers. I just don't see the Packers scoring that many points, let alone winning, to be honest. The next game is the Bears at the Lions. Speaking of the Bears, they got their third win of the season against the Panthers last week. And last time they had 3 wins in a season, they didn't win for the rest of the season. But it wasn't exactly convincing. They made it very close and it was quite low scoring, 16-13. So their offense isn't doing all that well. But based on the Panthers' offense also not really doing that well, it's clear that their defense isn't doing too much either. Because they still allowed it to be a three-point game. And against a team like the Panthers, that shouldn't be allowed. Meanwhile, the Lions also having a 3-point game, but against the Chargers. They went into SoFi Stadium and they scored a lot of points, but their defense just couldn't outcompete the Chargers offense, I guess. But here I think they just completely outcompete the Bears. I think they have the much better defense and the much better offense. They're a more complete team. Their running game is great. Jahmyr Gibbs is amazing. Amon-Ra St. Brown is amazing. Aiden Hutchinson is always amazing. I'm going to go the Lions. It's also a home game. I think that'll help them a little bit. I trust them quite a lot, and I think they'll get the win against the Bears. The next game is the Cowboys at the Panthers. Speaking of the Panthers, as I just said, they didn't do particularly well against the Bears, and they're 1-8 at the moment. And I guess the Bears didn't really have a reason to win because they get their draft pick anyway from the Panthers. But the Panthers still lost. And it's just not looking good for anyone in the Panthers at the moment. Not really looking good for Bryce Young, although I don't think he'll be going anywhere. He just needs some time to settle in, I reckon. Their offense isn't really that good. Their defense isn't that good. They're not a stable team at all. Meanwhile, the Cowboys, winning 49-17 against the Giants. How on earth did they concede 17 to the Giants? I don't know. But CeeDee Lamb is incredible. The defense is amazing with Micah Parsons. And Dak Prescott, these past 2 weeks, has looked fairly solid. I reckon that'll deplete at some point, but I don't think it will against Carolina. I think Dallas will go into Carolina and they'll be able to beat the Panthers. I'm going to go with Dallas. The next game is the Giants at the Commanders. The Giants got battered by the Cowboys again, but at least in this match they scored. Scored at all. They scored 17. It's a fair amount, especially against the Cowboys defense. But they still did concede 7 touchdowns. The Giants they're not a good team. I think they're one of the worst teams in the NFL right now, possibly second worst behind the Patriots. Maybe the Panthers are a little worse, but at this point I have no idea. Their offense just can't really get anything going. And their defense doesn't look stable either. Meanwhile, the Commanders, cutting it very, very close against the Seahawks, nearly winning as well. Just came down to a final drive inside the last minute for Seahawks to win with a game-winning field goal, I believe. But the Commanders I think are a stronger team than the Giants. I don't think they're strong by any means. They are 4-6, but the Giants are 2-8. So if the Commanders are bad, then the Giants are the worst. I don't actually think they're the worst. I think Patriots and maybe Panthers are worse, but I think Commanders are better than the Giants, and I think that's ultimately just the factor that it's going to come down to. I'm going to go with Washington. The next game is the Buccaneers, the 49ers. The Buccaneers getting a 14-point win over the Titans and Will Levis, but they're still not completely convincing. Meanwhile, the 49ers decimating the Jaguars 34-3. It's like they have a bye week and their season restarts. Like how they decimated the Steelers 30-7, and then they come back after having some time off and 34-3. So what, they're gonna go on another like 5-game winning streak and then lose like 3 in a row? That could happen. That could genuinely happen. And I think it will continue here. I think they'll beat the Buccaneers. It's a home game, so it's going to be strong for them. The Bucs are going to face a tough defense, and I don't think they'll be able to push through that much. So I'm going to go with the Niners. The next game is the New York Jets at the Buffalo Bills. I have no idea who's going to win this one, to be honest. The Jets won earlier in the season, but it was like a 16-13 win or something. It was very low scoring. And the Jets and Bills both are coming off a loss. The Jets losing 16-12 to the Raiders, and the Bills losing 24-22 to the Broncos. But I think the reason the Bills lost is because of a stupid mistake they made of having 12 men on the field. So the Broncos got to retake a missed field goal, and then they scored it. So I just think that was just a little mistake. So Buffalo could have won that. They should have won that, but they didn't. Meanwhile, the Jets just aren't. Their offense just isn't doing enough. Zach Wilson needs to step it up. He really does. Like how he played against the Chiefs, and I don't remember who they played after that, but the Chiefs and whoever they played after, if he just plays like that, like he did against them, it might have been the Eagles. Because he played decently against the Eagles. If he just plays like that consistently, this wouldn't be a tough decision for me to make. I would pick the Jets. But ultimately, I think they will split the series, and I will go with the Bills. I don't have complete confidence in either of them, just like Titans-Jags. But I think this one's a much tougher matchup. I'm going to go with Buffalo. I think the home advantage might give them a slight edge, but I'm not confident. The next game is the Seahawks at the Rams. Seahawks fans, start praying, because after barely beating the Commanders and being decimated by the Ravens, this might be much worse, because we have a 5-game stretch of the Rams, who are not only at home, but they're coming off of a bye week, the 49ers, Cowboys, 49ers again, and the Eagles. I, for one, am not looking forward to that. Because I think instantly I'm just going to pick the Rams. Because this might be like one of, if not our only winnable game within those 5. We might be able to sneak a win against the 49ers, possibly even the Cowboys. But I don't see us sweeping the Niners. I don't see us beating the Eagles. And I think the Rams, coming off a bye week and being at home, I think they'll be quite competitive against us. I don't know if Matthew Stafford's going to be there for the Rams because of his injury to his thumb, but I don't think that's going to matter all too much. I'm still going to pick the Rams. I don't trust the Seahawks after nearly bottling it against the Commanders. So yeah, I'm going to go with Rams, but I hope the Seahawks can get a win. Then on Sunday night, it's the Vikings at the Broncos. I might watch this game because Josh Dobbs is looking really, really good, helping to lead the Vikings to the longest active winning streak in the NFL, because the Jags 5-game winning streak was broken. So the Vikings now have a 5-game winning streak. They started 0-3 and 1-4, and now they're 6-4. They are not letting the Lions get away that easily. Meanwhile, the Broncos, they barely beat the Bills, but they don't look like the worst team in the league right now. I'm not even sure if they'll be bottom 5, because that might be Panthers, Giants, Patriots, and either Bears or Packers, and possibly Titans. But I think Vikings are just a better team. Overall, Josh Dobbs is looking really good. I'm going to pick the Vikings to get the win in Denver. And then the final game, a game that a lot of people have been marking on their calendars this season. In prime time, the Super Bowl rematch, both teams coming off a bye week. It's almost too perfect. It's the Eagles at the Chiefs. The Chiefs, their last game was against the Dolphins. And if Tyreek Hill hadn't fumbled at the end of the first half, the Dolphins could have scored a field goal and the Chiefs wouldn't have had a touchdown. So the Dolphins might have won that. It just came down to a mistake. Because the Chiefs aren't completely convincing at the moment, even though they should be. The Eagles, their last game, I don't quite remember. But they are 8-1 for a reason. They could have had, sure, they could have lost a couple of their games, but they're still a solid team. And in this Super Bowl rematch, it was the Cowboys they played last. Yeah, of course it was. And they nearly threw that lead away. So they're not completely convincing either, but they're a bit more convincing to me than the Chiefs are. In the Super Bowl rematch, I am going to pick the Eagles to get their revenge. To be honest though, it is the Chiefs, so I wouldn't be surprised if they won somehow. I was going to say if they got any referee help, but then again, the Eagles get a bit of referee help. Not as much as the Chiefs, but it's the Kelsey Swift Bowl, and it's Taylor Swift versus the Brotherly Shove. Whichever buff is going to come out on top, I don't completely know. But I'm going to pick the Eagles. I have a bit more faith in them than I do the Chiefs. And that's going to wrap up my Week 11 predictions. Hope you all enjoyed. Let me know your predictions in the comments below. Go Hawks, and until next time, goodbye and have a nice day.